So where does China have the West beat? It's pretty simple, and it's got to do with debt. When we grow up in the West, we're told by our parents, our teachers, and society around us, movies, TV shows, that anything is possible. That you, as long as you put your mind to something, can achieve whatever you want. You can be an astronaut, you can be a firefighter, you can be a millionaire, you can be the next Bill Gates, you could be the president of Australia or America or wherever you are from. We're taught this from a very young age, and it's actually not true. But of course, it's always nice to dream. The problem with this is that it instills in us this sort of idea that we deserve good things in life. So when you become a young adult, you look around you and you see things like your work colleagues, your friends, your parents, perhaps, all driving nice cars and wearing nice clothes. And so you think to yourself, well, they have it, I deserve it too. You know, maybe my million hasn't come along yet, maybe I'm just not successful enough yet, but there's no reason why I shouldn't have a nice car. So what do? Well, you go out to the bank and you get a finance, you loan finance for your car, and you end up paying off some piece of crap car for the next 10 or 15 years, even 20 some people, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. People also do things like, oh, I need some jeans. Well, I'm not going to go down to Walmart. I deserve the best. I'm going to go get myself some Levi's or whatever it is that are designer jeans these days. You know, so instead of spending $20, you spend like $200 on a pair of jeans, but you get it on credit. Now, the West is very well kitted out for credit. Pretty much everywhere you go, any shop you visit, they're more than happy to sell you or sign you up for their own in-store credit card or some kind of a club card where they extend credit to you. And of course, they earn money off of the interest at the end of the month when you don't pay it back on time. This is all really kind of disgusting sort of a setup, I have to say. I've always been appalled by this my entire life. I've been kind of lucky that personally, until very recently anyway, I never owned a credit card. I just refused. It meant that I always had crap things. I always drove rubbish cars and things like that. But it's because I refused to ever let myself get into debt. I, however, did not escape this whole idea of having to have something which I couldn't afford. And so what I would do is I would, go to the bank of mom and dad and ask them to lend me a little money, or go to my friends and say, hey, can you lend me $200 till the end of the month? I'll pay you back, that kind of thing. So I found myself in a similar situation, and that is this kind of hand-to-mouth living. End of the month, you have to pay everybody off that you borrowed money from. Most of my friends, yeah, they've got the newest PlayStation and they've got a nice car to drive and they've got some nice clothes, but every single paycheck goes to everything, and at the end of the day, every month they only have a few $100 to spend, something very small, not even enough to really enjoy themselves or buy anything of any significance. This is something that China, on the other hand, gets right, and that is saving, actually to a fault. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I was quite surprised when I first got to China 14 and a half years ago. When I arrived in China, I met people from all different castes of life. I met people from the very low end, people like sort of street sweepers, busboys at restaurants. I've got no preference when it comes to making friends. So when I was, in the early days exploring, not being able to speak any real Chinese, a few little phrases here and there, I would just speak to everyone and anyone that I could. And I made some pretty good friends along the way from all different walks of life, from billionaires and millionaires all the way down to street sweepers. And one thing that kind of blew me away was that the very, very low-end people, and I mean low-end not as in that the people are low, but on the actual social status spectrum, the very lower-end people always had a lot more money saved up than I did. And I considered myself to be, fairly middle class. I had my own business back in South Africa, an IT business called Resolution Dynamics. It was fairly successful. I could afford to pay myself and the salary of 2 other people, and we used to go around fixing networks and computers and stuff. So, I was used to kind of being in a fairly respectable position in society, somewhere in the middle. Not rich, but not poor, somewhere in the middle. But when I got to China, I was humbled by the fact that people that I would expect to be not slightly, quite a lot lower on the social spectrum than I was, had more money in the bank. And by more money, I mean like lots of money. And this is something that's come about because of all the instability in China's past. Not just in the recent past, but actually quite a way back into the past. China has gone through a lot of turmoil. There's been famine, starvation, incredibly widespread poverty, the disaster of the cultural devolution and the Great Leap Backwards. So as a result of this, people have learned to save money for a rainy day, because let's face it, if most of the days of the year are a rainy day, you need to make sure that you have a lot of money stashed away. The Chinese people that I know, family and otherwise, are all actually very frugal. These are, of course, not the fuardais and the sort of rich kids that go and splash money around and buy stupid things like Ferraris and Lamborghinis for their girlfriends and a million iPhones or whatever. I'm talking about your average Chinese person. They're incredibly frugal, so they're very good at finding bargains, discounts, things like that. They end up saving probably 60 to 80% of their salary and just spending money on the very basics that they need in order to survive and to make it to the next month, etc., etc. This was a very, very big life lesson for me, because although personally I never got into any serious debt, I still had that Western mindset of, oh, I can get something that I can't really afford. However, living in China has taught me that saving money up for something like if I want to buy a nice car, for instance, instead of getting a loan to buy this nice car, if I actually saved up my money and was able to go down and buy that car cash, it is so much more satisfying than basically buying it on credit, because that instant gratification wears off very quickly when you haven't actually earned it. It's just one of those things. Try it for yourself. Next time you want to buy something, save up for it. When you buy it with cash, you will feel so much more satisfied, and it will mean so much more to you than something that you just quickly bought with your credit card and are paying off over the next 24 months. This goes with everything in life. This goes with service as well. I learned a long time ago, because I've always been good with computers, that people would ask me to fix their computers and I would always just do it straight away. It doesn't matter who, friends, family, friends of friends. They'd be like, this guy knows computers, just give him a call. They'd phone me up and say, hey, I got this wrong, that wrong. I'm like, okay, bring it around, I'll fix it. I'd fix it for free. And then I realized that by doing that, I was not putting any value to my work. In other words, that which you give away for free is worthless. So when I actually started my company and started to charge people for these services, of course there were a lot of people that were like, why should I pay you? You could just fix this, it's really easy for you. I was like, okay, fine, then find somebody else that will fix it for you for free. And after a while, people started to realize that there was a lot of value in what I did. It kind of ties into the whole thing, but I don't want to get sidetracked here. Let's get back to the whole China thing. I would like all of you out there, Chinese people included, to learn from China's past and this very good culture of saving, because it's going out of the window. People are changing in China. Things have changed. China recently has gotten more into this whole sort of capitalist idea, buying fancy clothes, buying, sort of luxury brands, but specifically this crazy housing market where people are speculating, buying multiple properties and sitting on them and then selling them again, buying more and sitting on them and selling them, because what happens is it's no longer become a thing of buy what you can afford and invest what you can afford. It's like, well, I want to invest more, so what do? I go to the bank and I take a loan so I can buy more properties. I go to shadow banks and loan sharks to get money. I go to family to get money, and I invest it in more and more and more things. So what's happening in China is this whole sort of debt thing that the West has is starting to rear its ugly head, but at a supercharged rate. It's so different to what it used to be. When I first got to China back in 2006, everybody had money. Almost nobody was in debt. Now, in China right now, almost everybody has debt, and it's all related to these silly investments like property and the stock market and peer-to-peer lending and stuff. Stop, guys, stop. It's bad for you, okay? If you're Chinese right now, if you've got all this kind of debt, go back to the way you were. It's so much better than what we've got in the West. Trust me on this. And if you're Western, take a page out of these guys' books, because they know what they're doing. You can live a much better quality of life if you don't have a burden of debt on your shoulders. And I understand how difficult it is. The reason there's a green screen behind me right now, there, I'm switching it off so you can see. See, there's actual green screen. Let's go back to the footage. The reason there's a green screen behind me right now is that I'm currently traveling back and forth between China and LA, because Seamilk and myself have set up an office in LA for us to pursue bigger projects when it comes to ADVChina and stuff, traveling to India and traveling all over Asia, going to different places. So we needed a solid base to work from. So I'm back and forth in and out of China. And since my wife is pregnant right now, I know how incredibly expensive things like medical costs, medical insurance and stuff are in the States. So I understand why people do get into debt, especially when it comes to medical stuff. But if you can avoid it, I'd say that the most valuable lesson that I learned from China is don't live beyond your means. Make sure that you have enough and then buy whatever it is you want to buy. It's changed my life for the better, and I know it can change your life for the better. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Can't wait to see you in the next one. And as always, don't forget every single, what is it, Friday? Yeah, it's Friday. You can see my videos every Friday. Sorry, I get confused with this too. But Fridays for SerpentZA, Wednesdays for ADVChina, Monday, most important. See, I'm all muddled again. Monday is ADVChina. That's definitely the most important. Please go check it out. Awesome stuff, adventures around the world. That's where we're moving all this stuff. We want people to see what it's like not only in China, Taiwan, Vietnam, South Korea, Japan, India, all these places. We've got everything lined up. Go check it out. And if you got time, check out our podcast too. Anyway, until next time, you know the drill. As always, stay awesome.